table right now, a live look at Washington, D.C. If you've been wondering why your grocery bill is climbing, well, or feel that pain at the pump, I know I do when I'm in L.A. Well, President Biden wants you to know that reversing that trend is a top priority and says his infrastructure bill will help reduce the cost of goods. All right. Well, how soon will that happen? Well, that statement comes as a new inflation report revealed prices are on the rise. In fact, more than 6% over the past year. So right now, let's go to our D.C. correspondent, Bofta Yimam, because this marks the largest annual increase in decades, Bofta. This report, though, caught some at the White House off guard, and you knew the GOP was going to jump on it.
They did, and we've seen it time and time again. They see this kind of thing come out and they immediately tie it to the president's economic agenda. In this case, it's inflation. We also saw on Twitter some of them responding to the inflation report, like Representative Elise Stefanik saying this will be the most expensive Thanksgiving in the history of the holiday. And I might add, Mike, that we're going to see this probably play out in the midterms. They're going to hope that Americans retain the image of higher prices and inflation with the Democratic Party as we go into the midterm elections. But listen, many economists say there's a limited amount presidents can do to control inflation, especially during this kind of pandemic we're in. On the same day of that inflation report yesterday, President Biden gave a speech touting the passage of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. The speech in Baltimore, part of an effort for the Biden administration to gain momentum and inform the public on the power of the bill. This comes after a drop in polling numbers for the president, major Democratic election losses, and a social spending bill that's stuck in a logjam in Congress. Some experts also say that higher than normal inflation right now, as we come out of a pandemic, especially after years of low overall inflation, is not a reason to panic.
Ever think you'd be paying this much for a gallon of gas? In some parts of California, they're paying $4.50 a gallon. That's why it's so important that we do everything in our power to stabilize the supply chain. And here's the good news. Yesterday, I spoke with the CEOs, personally spoke with the CEOs of the major retailers, Walmart, Target, and the leading freight movers, FedEx and UPS. They assured me that the shelves will be stocked in stores.
Now, Democratic motorist Joe Manchin, who's pushed back on pieces of the president's economic agenda, had this to say on Twitter Wednesday. He said, by all accounts, the threat posed by record inflation to the American people is not transitory and is instead getting worse. From the grocery store to the gas pump, Americans know the inflation tax is real, and D.C. can no longer ignore the economic pain Americans feel every day. Now, White House officials have said that the social spending bill will help reduce the costs of things like prescription drugs. And we've heard this play out between Senator Joe Manchin, Mike, and of course the Democratic Party, where he's pushed back and said, let's get a look at official analysis on the cost of the social spending bill before we go any further. He's been one of the holdouts of several of them who want to see the price tag in real view, in clarity, before taking a vote on it officially. And so we're seeing this play out in a number of ways. So yes, it's an inflation report that came out on Wednesday, but what it means and what story it will tell for both the Democratic Party and how Republicans will seize on that story will be something that we'll look out for going forward. Also want to mention something that hasn't been talked about as much, Mike, as we're talking about inflation and spending during the pandemic. So many people were not spending, right, when we talk about the supply chain, on restaurants, on massages, on vacations, on flights during the pandemic. And what did they do? They spent money on goods. And so naturally, we'll probably see the prices, they've been high, we'll see them naturally come down as folks get back to normal kind of spending on those things that I just mentioned. And so those are the things that, economists are looking at and evaluating as we go into 2022.
Yeah, going into 2022, President Biden and this administration needs as many wins as possible, obviously going into next year in the midterms. Both of you, Mom, thank you so much. We'll check back in with you a little bit later from D.C.